This has become my favorite time of day when I get to read to some of my very favorite people in the world. So I'm glad you're watching, and it's hard to believe, but we're already up to chapter 3 in Spring According to Humprey. And I'm waiting to see what Humprey and his little animal friends might get into today in chapter 3. Chapter 3 is called The Humpster, not the hamster, but the Humster. At the end of the day, Mrs. Brisbane handed out flyers to all my friends. This is the information about Family Fun Night. Please share it with your family so they can mark the date on their calendars. As soon as the papers were in my friends' backpacks, the bell rang and they raced out of the room. Slow Down Simon was the first student out, as usual. Hurry Up Harry was the last student to gather up his coat and hat and leave room 26. Mrs. Brisbane straightened the papers on her desk. Then she came over to the window and looked out. "I hope we see more signs of spring soon," she said. "We usually do by now." "We saw the crocus," I reminded her. Mrs. Brisbane looked at me and smiled. "I imagine that you're ready for spring too." She looked over at Og. "How about you, Og?" Og didn't answer. He just dived into the water side of his tank and started swimming. Mrs. Brisbane chuckled. "At least you have a swimming pool year-round." Hamsters like me don't like swimming, but I guess humans and frogs do. After Mrs. Brisbane was gone for the day, and before Aldo came in to clean, I told Og I was going to visit Gigi. I wanted to make sure she saw the flower in the snow before it was dark. "Hi, Humphrey," Gigi happily squeaked as I slid under the door. I scurried over to the table and swung myself up. I was a little out of breath when I said, "Did you see the first sign of spring?" "No," Gigi said, looking around her cage. "Where is it?" "Outside," I replied. Luckily, the blinds were open. Gigi looked toward the window and twisted her head from side to side. "I don't see anything but a little snow on the ground." "Open your door," I said. "Remember how?" Gigi leaned against the door, wiggling and jiggling until it popped open. "I can't believe that really works," she said. The two of us moved close to the window and looked out. "Look over to the right near that tall tree. There's something purple on the ground," I explained. Gigi squinted and stared, and then she said, "What is that?" I explained about the crocus being the first flower of spring, pushing through the snow. "I didn't think flowers grew when it was cold," Gigi said. I explained that they usually don't, but sometimes they pop right up through the snow. "It's beautiful," Gigi whispered. We sat for a while staring out at the little speck of purple in the white snow. Finally, I asked, "Did Miss Mac tell the class about Family Fun Night?" "Uh-huh," Gigi said. "It sounds like fun, but will there be a lot of people there? And will it be noisy?" "Yes," I laughed. "I think there will be a lot of people, and when people are having fun, they're usually noisy." Gigi giggled. "That's true." She paused for a while, and then she said, "Families are awfully nice." I nodded. I've been to homes with lots of wonderful families. I always get a warm feeling in my toes when I see families together. "Me too," Gigi agreed. "Of course, I don't have a family." "I don't have one either," I said. "But I must have had a family sometime. I mean, as mammals, we had a mother and father and probably brothers and sisters." "I can't remember." Gigi sounded sad. "Neither can I said. "But everybody has a family somewhere." Gigi went back into her cage. I helped her shut the door so it looked as if it hadn't been opened. "I'm sorry the blinds are open," I said. "At least I saw the crocus," she said, "and Miss Mac said she left a note for Aldo to close the blinds when he's done cleaning. She knows I need my sleep. Leave it to Miss Mac to understand a classroom pet." "Sleep well," I told her. When I got back to my cage in room 26, I told Og all about my visit. "Boing, boing, boing," he twanged when I talked about families. "Do you remember your family?" I asked him. He didn't answer. He just dived into the water with a huge splash. "I'm sure you had a nice one," I said as I returned to my cage. "I'm sure we all did. If we could only remember." When Aldo cleaned the classroom that night, he was restless. As he swept the floor, he muttered to himself, but of course Og and I could hear him. It's all happening at once, he said. Final exams, graduation, job hunting, and now 2 babies. It's too much. My whiskers wiggled as I heard him talking. Didn't Aldo want to graduate from college, get a better job, and be the father of twins? Aldo emptied the floor sweepings into the trash can. What if I fail, he said. You won't, I squeaked. Never, never, never. Og chimed in with a very loud boing, boing. I was surprised when Aldo laughed. You too, he said. You never let a friend down, do you? I certainly hope not, I squeaked back. Even though Aldo couldn't understand me, I was warmly rewarded with a sweet and tender piece of lettuce from the sandwich he ate on his break. Thanks, pals, he told us as he threw a froggy fish stick into my friend's tank. You're welcome, Aldo, I replied. On Friday afternoon, I saw the biggest grin I've ever seen. It was Joey smiling when Mrs. Brisbane announced that I'd be going home with him for the weekend. I was delighted to see him so happy, but I was also a little worried. Sometimes he talked about his dog Skipper, who was very good at catching a frisbee with his teeth. Skipper must have large and sharp teeth to catch something flying through the air at great speed. I'm not fond of dogs with large, sharp teeth because I've had bad experiences with them in the past. I never thought it would happen, Joey said as he picked up my cage. I wish we could go home right away, but I have to go to the after-school program. You can come with me. I'd never heard of an after-school program before, but anything that has to do with school is fun, fun, fun to me. Joey carefully carried my cage and his coat down the hall. The gym is an enormous room with bleachers and a stage. It wasn't my first time there, but it was my first time there for the after-school program. I was happy to see many of my friends. Calm Down Cassie, Tell the Truth Thomas, Hurry Up Harry, and Helpful Holly from my class were there. But so were some friends from last year's class. Raise Your Hand Heidi, Don't Complain Mandy, Pay Attention Art, Speak Up Saya, and Sit Still Seth. They all seemed so happy to see me. As soon as Joey put my cage down on a table, everyone gathered around. Humphrey the hamster, Art said. It's Humphrey Dumpty, Mandy said. That was the nickname AJ had given me. No, he's the Humpster, Harry said. That was a new nickname I'd never heard before. The Humpster, my friends began to chant. I liked my silly new nickname. Their chanting stopped suddenly when a loud whistle blasted and my small hamster ears began to vibrate. Ow, I squeaked. Of course, I knew who blew that whistle. I had seen it and heard it many times before. Mrs. Wright, the PE teacher and owner of the whistle, leaned over my cage. What is a hamster doing in my gym? I hopped on my wheel and squeaked, Getting some exercise! I braced myself in case she blew the whistle, but instead she leaned in closer. Well, at least he's getting some exercise. Then she stood up and looked around. Who brought this animal to the gym? Joey stepped forward. I did. I'm taking him home for the weekend, but my mom won't let me here until 5:30. So I thought he should come with me. Mrs. Wright shook her head. I wish Mrs. Brisbane would clear these things with me. Couldn't he have stayed in the classroom? Yes, Joey answered. But Mrs. Brisbane locks the door when she leaves, so how would I get him out? Yes, how? I squeaked at Mrs. Wright, even though to squeak the truth, I'm a bit afraid of her. No pets allowed in the after-school program, she said. Can you imagine what this gym would be like with dogs and cats and rabbits and hamsters running loose around the gym? When she put it that way, I could see her point. I didn't want to be running around here with dogs and cats in the gym or anywhere else. Joey looked down at my cage. What should I do? Mrs. Wright sighed. Well, he's here now, so I guess this time he'll have to stay. But never again. Sometimes Mrs. Wright's voice made me shiver and quiver because I'd worry that she'd blow that loud whistle. I have no idea, Joey said to Mrs. Wright. She had her hand on the whistle as she looked down at him. We could build a hamster maze for Humphrey, he said. He loves that. A hamster maze? She asked in a way that made me think she didn't approve of hamsters or mazes. We put up books or bricks or whatever to make the maze and watch Humphrey run through it. Maybe we could make a human maze too, Joey said. Mrs. Wright thought for a moment. I guess that would keep us all active and out of trouble, she said. Keeping active was really, really, really important to her. That's one thing we have in common. Before I knew it, there was a lovely maze on the gymnasium floor made of gymnastic mats and backpacks and cones and I don't know what else. There I was, running through it as fast as my paws could take me. And there were my friends, all cheering me on. It wasn't until I got to the end that Mrs. Wright blew her whistle. Eek! That was loud! But when my friend shouted, "Yay, Humster! Yay, Humster!" I felt hamsterific. Next, my friends all ran through the maze, and I think Mrs. Wright was pretty happy to see them moving. Faster, Harry, you can do it. Go for it, Mandy, she shouted. When she wasn't blowing her whistle, she actually seemed like a very nice human. The time passed quickly, so when just Joey's mom showed up, I couldn't believe it. It was 5:30 and time to go home. Where do you meet Skipper? Joey put a warm blanket over my cage as we headed to the car. Meet a dog with sharp teeth? I could wait. Humphrey Spring Things. It's fun to be with friends and run a maze, but when it comes to dogs, I'd like to wait a few more days. So that is chapter 3 in our Spring According to Humphrey. And then chapter 4, I'll give you a hint. The chapter's called The Big, Big, Big Oops. So we're going to have to wait till tomorrow to see what happens in chapter 4. I hope you had a great day and you got to play outside today, and I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.